Okay, this video is going to show you how to display multiple records on a web page, and also how to delete individual records from a table. And we're going to do this by creating a little admin page to show all the users so that we can select any that we might want to delete. Okay, so it'll actually tidy up this mess that I've got in my database. Alright, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start off by adding to our project, select web project, add to our project. So what happened there is I only had the solution selected, so I didn't have project, so it's actually easier to just right click there and say add. So a new item, so we want a new web form, which I'm going to call user admin. That might be a good name, user admin. Okay, so it's going to be a simple web page. I'm not going to put any content, I'm going to dynamically create everything on this. So I'm just going to name this basic div, and I'm going to call it page content, and I'm going to say run at server so I can access it from my code. Okay, that's all I'm going to do to this web page. So I now need to go to the code for this, so I'm going to say view code, so right click. Right, we don't want anyone other than an administrator accessing this page, so we're going to do a test in page load. So when the page first loads, we're going to say storage.access level. If it's not equal to admin, okay, or whatever you've called yours, what we're immediately going to do is send the user back to the home page. My home page is called default.aspx. I'll get there in a minute. ASPX. Okay. Otherwise, or else, we're going to generate page content. Okay. So we're going to say display users. That doesn't exist, so what I'm going to do, I found a shortcut key for this. If we do Control K, then let go of everything and press M, it will create the subroutine for us. We can then press F12 to jump to the subroutine. Okay, so we're going to create a little routine that's going to loop through all the users and display them on screen. So first of all, we need to get from the database the users. Data view doesn't exist. Okay, because we need to include the correct library for this. So the library that we're going to need to include is the system.data one, which we've done before. So I'm just going to put a little comment, extra libs, and I'm going to say using system.data. We're also going to be dynamically creating web controls like div tags and labels and things. So we're going to also include using system.web, use the picker so you don't make mistakes, .ui.html controls. Okay, they're the two libraries that we need for this page. Okay, so I'll come back to our display users. We're going to create a data view. I'm just going to leave it with the name DV to keep it short again, and I'm going to create get user details property in my data class. Okay, so that doesn't exist, so I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say generate property. Okay, and hopefully that's created it for me. So I'm going to now go and build that little query to bring the user details in. So I'm going to go to definition. Okay, now this is a property, so it's one of those get ones again. So I'm just going to say on the next line get open brace, close brace. And I'm just going to push that one down onto the next line as well. Okay, so that's my basic get. What I need to do is create my SQL. Now this is going to be a super simple SQL again. I'm just going to say select start from, and my table is called TBL user. That's it, that's the query, it's a simple one. And then I'm just going to return the result I get back from my execute and fill. So I'm going to say SQL null. Okay, so you can't actually get a simpler query than that. There is no parameters, no nothing. Okay, it is as is. I'm going to put myself a little XML comment on there, so get all user details. Okay, right, back to my user admin page. That stops moaning now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through each record that I've got. And I'm not going to use a normal for loop, I'm going to use a for each loop. Just to show you, I'm just trying to show you a few different things. Now each record in a data view is called a data row view. So we're going to say for each data row view, okay, use the picker again, Pascal cased, and I'm going to call that dr in dv. Alright, so let's just look at what we got there. We're saying for every data row view in our data view, do the next action. Okay, it just keeps it a little bit simpler and makes the code a little bit nicer. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to create a label to put a delete link in and to display the user details. Okay, so we're going to say label, can't type properly, label, if I use the picker it'll work, and I'm just going to call it L to keep it short, equals new label. So that's going to create me a label, and then I'm going to add this delete function. So I'm going to say l.text equals, now I'm going to put in square brackets remove user, and I want to make a hyperlink that will load this page again, but actually have some information saying I want to delete a particular user. So I'm going to put it in square brackets and I'm going to make a hyperlink manually, and that's what we call an A tag. So I'm going to href, and this is what do we want to link to. Notice I'm using a single quote there because I've got a string, and I'm going to put a string in between double quotes. Whenever I want to use quotes in HTML, I have to use a single quote. So I'm going to say question mark, which means this links to the current page, and I'm going to say A equals del. Now A is what we call a query string variable. So we can set variables that we can pass back to the page. So we're going to say, right, I want to delete, I'm going to use A as an action, and what I want to delete I'm going to call U. Okay, and I'm going to set that to the user's ID that I'm looking at. Remember, I'm working through this data view. So I get that from dr, and my unique identifier was user ID. So I'm going to say user ID. Okay, so I've got a string, and then I'm adding this to it. Now technically we should put to string to force it to a string. So let's do it properly. Okay, then I'm going to start a new string. I'm going to put a single quote and a greater than sign. Now that is the start of the A tag. So I've got an A tag, the link information is all of this. Okay, so the link's in single quotes. Then I've got a closing tag, greater than sign. Then I'm going to put the text that I want to display. Okay, for the hyperlink. So I'm going to keep this nice and tidy and do it like this. Let me get rid of my windows over there. Right, so I've got the end of the tag, and then I'm going to say a plus, and then this is going to be the text I want to display. So I'm going to say remove user. Okay, then I'm going to finish this off with an A closing tag. Okay, so that's going to make a little link that's going to display on screen that I'll be able to click on. Okay, we'll see it all working in a minute. Now we're going to add the user details. Okay, and I want to carry on the same line. So I'm going to say l.text plus equals. So I'm going to say add on to this, and I'm going to just put login name. I'm going to display my login name. That'll be for you. Might be your email, an email address or whatever you've decided to use for yours. Notice I left a space so that the text doesn't all bunch up. Remember from string manipulation, that's what we're doing. Right, so I'm going to display the login name. Now my login name is called f login name. Okay, and I'm going to put toString. Okay, so I'm going to display that. I'm going to also display text plus equals the status, whether they're a normal user or not, or an admin user. So that's in my field called fStatus. Okay, what I've done is I've opened my data connection so I can see my field names. It makes it easier. Don't have to flick back and forwards between access to string. Okay. What I'm also going to add at the end of that is a BR tag. There are loads of different ways of doing this. You could use CSS to style this to make certain bits in bold, etc. Okay, but I'm gonna just see what this looks like. Right, so that creates a label. I now want to add this to the page, so I'm going to say page content, because that's what I called. Remember, let's just flick back and prove it. That's what I called the div, not page content. So I'm going to say page content dot controls dot add L. So I'm adding this label. Okay, and then I'm going to go around my loop again and add another one. That should be all I've got to do. So if I just run my system, now I've got my default page, so I'm just going to open default. I need to make a new link. Show my code. If I've got my admin user, so I've gone to the page load of my default, and I had something for my admin user here. I had register link visible. So I'm going to put braces in there so I can add more than one line of code. And what I'm also going to do is add another link that says well, I haven't created it yet, so let's put a hyperlink into that web page. So if I go to my toolbox, so I'm in my default code, I'm going to add a link label if I can find it. Oh, there it is, hyperlink. And I'm going to add it just above my website, I think. I'm going to make sure this is invisible to start, so I say visible equals false. So it's only going to be available to admins. I'm going to give it a better name than that. It's going to be user admin. I'm going to call it as a name. Okay, so it's not visible. So I'm going to put text in the hyperlink. You can do all this through the properties tab, remember. So for this, I'm just going to say user administration. Okay, and I need to set the link for this, so I'm actually going to bring the properties window up for this. I'll just lock that in position. So oh, I can never find it on these. Navigate URL, that's the one. Right, so this will list me all my things. So I've got user admin is what I want to load. So I'll put that in, and you can see that that's what it's linked in for me. So back to my default code, I need to say user admin thing, because I've got run at server, it's popped up, visible equals true. Okay, so I can make that control visible. Right, let's just run it and let's just see if I can log in as an admin. So my admin's called me. So when my default page comes up, right, so I'm going to log in as me. There I've got user administration. Remember, this needs tidying up, but I'm not going to show you how to do that. You need to work that out yourself. So I'm going to click on user administration, and there it goes. It's displayed each user on a separate line. So I've got remove user, login name Dave. I could do with a square bracket after that remove user bit. And if I move my mouse over the hyperlink, you can see at the bottom it says useradmin.aspx !a equals del and U equals 5. And if you move to the different users, you'll see the different user numbers. Okay, now they're in a random order. That's because I didn't put an order by in my query. Anyway, let's tidy this up so we get that a bit squarer. Okay, so back to my user admin code, and that bit. I'll put a square bracket after the A closing tag. It should display nicer. Okay, right, moving on up. If we click this, it's going to load the page again, and we can then detect. So in here, before we display the users, we're going to say switch, and we're going to say request A. Okay, so we're going to say, is there a value for the query string variable A, which we hope is for delete. So we're going to say case, is it del? Okay, and if it is del, we're going to remove a user from the database that is given as query string U. So all we're going to say is data, so we're going to stick it in there again, remove user, and then we're going to say as the parameter request U. Okay, so this doesn't exist, so I'm going to right click and say generate method stub. So if we've got come through a hyperlink A that had a value of del, then we can look up U, and that should be the user number. Right, let's go to this code and create our delete query. Right, so we're going to say string SQL equals delete. Okay, it's going to be quite simple. And we just say delete star from, and my table, remember, was called table user, but obviously yours will be different. Or if you're doing this delete for another section of your website, you might want to delete a product or whatever. So where, and I'm looking at the unique number, user ID equals question mark. Okay, so I'm going to create a parameter collection. Oops, can't even spell. Parameter collection PC equals new parameter collection, and then I can say pc.add new parameter question mark type code is an int 32 because it's a number, remember, and I'm going to use it's p, string p. Okay, that's a rubbish name for a parameter, but all the Visual Studio can do is guess when we get it to create things. So let's just rename that p. Make sure you've got no errors in your code, and then we're going to call that user ID. Where that little red tag is, if you move over it, you'll get this little popper and it'll say rename, and it'll automatically rename it for you. There it goes. Right, so we just need to execute our delete. So execute delete with that SQL and that parameter, and that should be it. So what we should see, the effect of that should be, if we've clicked on a link to delete a user, we remove the user before we display the user. So we should see instantly the change. Okay, so back to our default, let's run that and see how we get on. So I've got to log in as my admin user. What you must make sure you don't do, because it's not checking for that, I could delete myself. That would be a disaster. So user administration. Right, let's get rid of fifth. So I'm going to remove user fifth. There you go. Remove user F. I'm going to get rid of a few of these. Get rid of that. And you can see they're instantly updated. So I'm going to leave it back. Whoops, I've deleted myself. Like an idiot. So I'll have to manually put in an admin again now. What a prat. Okay. So all those items should have been deleted from the data. So I deleted every single user in the database. Let's prove that by looking at the data which hasn't been refreshed. So let's run that again. refresh, there is no date. I've deleted every single user account, which is insane. Okay, and that was it. Simple as pie. So you can use that exact same technique for deleting individual records. So if you've got some products, if you browse, you can make yourself a nice little hyperlink like this, identifying an action that we can pick up in a switch when the page loads. And as long as you make sure you put the unique identifier for a record in there, you've got yourself a simple way of deleting. Okay.